Base 600 from Be Quiet offers a tempered glass side panel, sound damping material, and a highly versatile design. Ships with a pair of powerful Pier Wings 2 fans and intentional support for 360 radiators. Click the link in the description for more info.
Alright, look at this. I'm on a tripod today. Woo-wee! Moving on up in the world, getting fancy. Figured you guys would appreciate it. Won't have to deal with my shaky cam chronicles like you usually do. But let's take a look first at our CPU here. And there was a lot of debate and internal struggle that I was dealing with when choosing a Ryzen part. And eventually I settled on this Ryzen 5 1600. I almost went with the 1600X, but I figured this was the better value considering our tight budget. Honestly, you're still getting 6 cores, 12 threads. It's going to be great for multi-threaded applications, of course, as well as gaming, especially since I'm targeting this build to really game and shine best at 2560 by 1440. You can definitely get away with that, and we'll talk more about that later, but I think the 1600 is a good call. It's a 65 watt TDP part, so you don't really need too much cooling power, and with the included raised spire, which you can check out my full review of in the top right corner of the screen if you haven't seen that yet, I think we're going to be saving quite a bit of cash this way so that we can actually dump it into other more important parts in our computer. But I think it's also going to overclock fairly well on our motherboard here, which is the Asus Prime. Let me go ahead and move this guy out of the way. The Asus Prime B350 Plus. I've actually been using this board quite a bit ever since the launch of Ryzen, mainly just for testing and stuff, and I've actually really liked it so far. It overclocks well enough, and just as well as like an X370 board, or at least the ones that I've tried it with. And the memory compatibility is actually pretty solid. Ever since Asus started rolling out those BIOS updates, we've been able to hit some nice 3200 megahertz on various kits, including this Ripjaws 5 16GB kit. This is G-Skill memory, and it's totally good stuff, DDR4, 3200 megahertz. So we're going to be running it at that rated speed, which I'm very confident that we can hit, no problem. And we've also got a 1TB Seagate Barracuda for our only storage drive. I know you guys are going to kill me. Kyle, how could you not include an SSD in this build? I can already feel the riots brewing in the comments. But guys, with $850 to spare, I really wanted to squeeze every last ounce of performance out of our gaming PC here, which really I had to attribute that money, or distribute that money to like the CPU, the video card, and I didn't really want to cut corners in those areas. So what ended up happening was I cut corners with our storage. But that's okay, I think, because an SSD is super easy to upgrade later down the line if you just want to drop one in and migrate your OS and other applications onto it. Should be pretty straightforward. But I will say, if you guys are building something similar to the build that you see here, and you have an extra, $100 or so to spare, I would highly recommend getting an SSD in the 250-ish gig capacity for your operating system, because it will in fact make your system run a bit zippier, actually much zippier. But for the purpose of today's video, I think the 7200 RPM mechanical will do the job just fine for now. Moving on to our power supply, we've got a 550 watt EVGA unit. This is just a very generic sort of budget-oriented power supply here, and I actually thought when I purchased it that it was 80 plus certified, at least 80 plus bronze. It's not. There's no 80 plus rating on it, which is kind of strange, but I'm still fairly confident that it should be okay for our needs. So, I mean, you could expect maybe 75% or so efficiency as opposed to 80 plus. See what I did there? But honestly, we've got a low TDP part here for our CPU. Even if we overclock it, I think that's not going to draw too much power at all. And we've also got a fairly power efficient video card here from AMD, the brand new RX 580. This in particular is the Power Color Red Devil. Comes factory overclocked with a bit more headroom, but the RX 580, which just launched, but from AMD not too long ago, is quite a bit more power efficient as well than the RX 480. Even though it's using the same Polaris 10 GPU in there, we should be able to get away with, a non-80 plus certified power supply. At least I would hope so. Hopefully this build doesn't melt or incinerate by the end of it all. Let me go ahead and adjust the camera angle. Shaky Cam Chronicles are back again. Woo! And finally, we've got our case of the hour. This is the Spec Alpha from Corsair as part of their Carbide series. It's only about $75-80, so a super budget-oriented case. Great for a build like this. And a lot of you guys have actually been requesting that I do a build in this chassis, which I was like, well, yeah, if there's enough request for it, then I will. So here it is. This is going to be my first time building in it personally, so I'm not sure what to expect. I haven't really seen a full review of it yet. It's been more or less well received from what I understand, but it's always different and nice to just experience it yourself firsthand. So looking forward to building in this sucker today. Hopefully it doesn't give me too many problems. But those, my friends, are all the parts for today's build. Overall, I'm very excited to put it together. I think the end result is going to be glorious. So let's go ahead and kick it off to a quick time lapse and get to building. Okay guys, here's the finished build, and she's looking pretty good, actually. For the budget we had to work with, I'm pretty impressed how we were able to color match as well as we did. There's really no color clashing drama going on, apart from maybe the green sticker on the hard drive, but fortunately that's tucked away in the drive cage, so you can't really see it too much. You guys may have noticed that I peeled the sticker off of the power supply during the time-lapse, only to reveal a manufacturing flaw underneath, which is kind of a bummer. It looks like some sort of blemish or paint got on there before they put the sticker on. Whatever, it's just a cosmetic affair, no big deal. Cable management in the Spec Alpha wasn't terrible, it wasn't great either. At first I thought it was going to be really rough because there's hardly any room from first glance behind the motherboard tray, and then you realize quickly that the back side panel actually is indented, so it does give you some extra space there, but sort of minimal with the tie down points. I wish there was a few more of those, and the included zip ties with this case are just too short. They're way too short, so Corsair maybe make them a little bit longer for next time. One thing I ought to mention is that there's actually no cable routing hole near the 8-pin CPU connector. So that means I had to route the cable all the way across the VRM, across the entire motherboard, and through the same hole that I routed the 24-pin ATX cable, which kind of looks a bit silly. Fortunately, the power supply cables are black, but if they weren't, God, that would just look horrendous. So also something to be aware of if you're going to be going this route with this case. There's also, you can sort of see the cables coming through the right side of the motherboard tray there, so it doesn't look the cleanest. I could have spent a bit more time tidying that up and making sure that they're not visible from this side of the case, but that's added time that I didn't really want to spend. Overall, though, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I kind of like how the fans are, have red LEDs in them. It sort of illuminates just the right side of the case just a bit, gives it a bit of glow without having to buy some LEDs. But overall, very happy with how this turned out. Stay tuned for part 2, where we do a full analysis. We do all the gaming benchmarks, overclocking, acoustics and thermals, and that sort of thing, so it should be very fun. But guys, let me know what you think of this build. 850 bucks. I know for sure we can definitely do 2560 by 1440 gaming with the majority of titles at pretty decent settings. But let me know what you guys think, if this is a good value, if you like the parts list for this month. And yeah, love to hear your feedback. As always, thank you very much. Toss me a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Also, feel free to subscribe to the channel for more tech stuff coming at you really soon.